O meu nome é Felipe Amaral, eu sou diretor do Campus Caldeira, que é a área de educação aqui do Instituto. E para mim é uma honra estar aqui apresentando esse painel. A Semana Caldeira, como vocês sabem, é a 4ª edição que a gente está fazendo. A gente estima que vão passar por aqui 15 mil pessoas ao longo da semana. E aí eu queria agradecer aos patrocinadores também, Banrisul, Agibank, Sebrae, que são os patrocinadores principais que permitem que a gente possa trazer gente do mundo inteiro para conversar e dialogar com a nossa comunidade. So I'm going to switch to English now, and I'm really happy for this moment. I have 2 great friends of mine that are going to be joining the panel, and I have a guy that I just met today, but he came from all over from India to be here with you. So he's already like part of the house, and I can consider him a friend, and I'm sure maybe there is something in the future that we're going to do together. So the first one that I want to invite is Fernando. He's a friend since I was little, and he's one of the smartest guy that I met in my life. He's like an artist as well as the VP of strategy and creative of one of the most amazing agencies, communication agencies in the world, called GUT. So, Fernando Ribeiro, please come over. Uma salva de palmas, eu ia dizer. Some words will be missing, but claps for Fernando. Thank you, Fernando, for being here. The second one that I want to present is another friend that I met 8 years ago. I met him in Medellin, in Colombia. He founded an organization called LALA, Latin America Leadership Academy. And since we met in Medellin 8 years ago, we got really connected. And we are doing, in the last 8 years, dreaming together of creating something that we weren't sure what was it. And this panel is an idea to bring this dream into life. So I'm really happy to welcome to the stage David Batista. And my new friend that came all over from India. 3 years ago, we met a person that told me that we should learn about an initiative that was happening in Armenia, in Europe. A school for teenagers with technology, art, music, and all of that. And then there was an idea to bring this organization to Brazil 3 years ago. 3 years ago, we weren't ready in Caldeira to receive an organization like TUMO. But 3 years after, we have a space out the other side of the street that we're expanding Instituto Caldeira. And we have a dream that maybe one day we can have a school of TUMO here in Caldeira that will be the first school of TUMO in Brazil. And Kabir represents TUMO in Asia. So my new friend, welcome to the stage, Kabir. And I'm going to pass it over to Fernando.
Thank you. I was really happy you introduced me as an artist first. Amazing. Definitely not true, but thank you. So my role here is to moderate a conversation between the 3 of you, so I'll try to make myself invisible. I think the first question to warm this up is for you, Felipe. So I think you are the connector. We'll be talking about education today, not education in the sense of the word as we know today, but as it could be in the future. And I would love to know from you, what do you think bring the 3 of you together? What's the common vision of education that you think the 3 of you share?
Great question to start. I think it's about something that I'm looking for maybe in the last 20 years. 20 years ago, I said that maybe I wanted to work with young people, with education. And at that time, I thought that I came to the world with this mission, with this power. And then after I understood, no, I'm just one more trying to do something. And then through the process of these 20 years, I met a lot of people. I met a lot of initiatives, projects, and a lot of them I connected. But at that time, I didn't have something that I would say, wow, this can be like a global project in education that can transform a city, that can transform a state, that can transform a country. And after 3 years working here in Caldeira, I have a project or I have a project that I dream that could be a global project. And I know that because I have friends that are a lot more experienced and more intelligent than me, and that created amazing things. And I know that when I bring David, I'm telling David to come here to Brazil, like in the last 3 years. And it's tough, the agenda, and now he's here. And I'm sure Kabir as well, when we invited him to come, like maybe a month ago, he said, wow, Brazil could be interesting, but what I'm gonna find in Instituto Caldeira? What is Instituto Caldeira? And the common sense for everyone that comes here is that there is something here that can be magical. We brought friends from Australia that are here, and one of them, maybe you met, is a magician. So they have an educational program and they bring a magician. Why do they bring a magician? Because it's about imagination. It's about fun, entertainment, and all of that. So I think I'm not responding directly the question, but I'm sure that my dream is so small comparing to other dreams that are here with me in stage and that are with me in the audience right now. And my goal is to spread this dream. Because if this dream is just Felipe's dream, it's going to be a small dream. If this dream is the dream of other amazing international organizations, is a dream of the people that work here in Caldeira, if it's the dream of people from Geração Caldeira that I'm seeing here, maybe we can do something interesting for the world and for the new generations.
Amazing, thank you, Felipe. So let's bring this home a little bit. Kabir, you just landed at midnight after a 30-hour flight. So thank you for being here, still awake and energized. So why do you think TUMO is such a reference worldwide when it comes to new approaches to education?
Yeah, thank you. It's very easy to stay awake when you can have such fun, interesting conversations, right? Not felt sleepy at all yet. So I think with TUMO, there are a couple of things that we try to do that seem to be clicking everywhere now. I think one at the core of it all is that we really think with young people, you need to give them choice. A lot of times, education programs that will kind of pick one specific narrow thing and go very deep, and that's also valuable. But for a lot of young people, it's less about, I didn't know what I wanted to be. I mean, I'm figuring it out at my age, but when I was younger, I certainly had no idea what I really wanted to do. And by being able to try out many different things and seeing, hey, where am I actually passionate? And once I find that passion, to actually work hard towards that, we think that that really works nicely. So to give students a lot of choice is one key part of it. So we teach everything from technical things like machine learning, robotics, coding, things like that, to very creative things like photography, storytelling, music. And a lot of students will kind of start out thinking, oh, I want to be an engineer, but then do a course in photography and realize that the creative side is really where they want to be, and then end up landing on video game development or something different like that. I think the second, so one is choices. So you give students choice. The second is you still have to give a lot of carefully thought out structure. The internet already has unlimited choice of everything, but most people who start out kind of just doing an internet course on a MOOC or something, I think it's 0.3% of MOOC courses that actually get completed. And part of that is because someone just sitting alone at home doesn't have the structure and support to make it work. So our centers right now, it's all in person. You come in, you choose as a student what you want to do, and then you get a lot of structured guidance, both when you're doing self-learning and you're doing workshops. And then the third thing is you should actually be getting people to make things. Answering test questions is, no one enjoys that. We really strongly believe that all teenagers love to learn, but they hate to study. And so what we try to do is give them this chance to be making things. So whatever skill they choose, to kind of keep going deeper and deeper, they have to keep making products. And initially it can be very simple, basic products. But over time, as they get better, their passion develops. The passion translates to motivation. They kind of spend time even outside TUMO developing those skills, and they keep making things as they're going along. So that mix of choice, structure, and a focus on making things, I think, is something that comes together nicely at TUMO.
And how do you define the business model behind Tumo?
Yeah. So Tumo, I should share actually, it's free for students. So we don't charge students anything. And we feel that that's actually a very important part for our program. We find that because it's free, we're competing with everything else that teenagers could be doing outside. And so Tumo has to be delivering an exceptional experience. So to make Tumo free, that's of course not easy. We are always looking for partners who can make it happen together. So very often, the first big thing that we need is a spectacular space that people actually want to spend time in. And I was telling Felipe, I've, just in the last year, I've been to probably 7, 8 cities in India, been to a couple of places in South Korea, Singapore, South Africa, California. Caldera is the first place where I feel like we could open Tumo tomorrow and it's ready. So partners for space, partners for helping us with funding, so it can be sometimes governments help with that. So Buenos Aires, which is our first center in Latin America, it is fully funded by the local government. In Mumbai, it's a philanthropic actor who is providing the funding. And then we also try and find, instead of us going and building a team from scratch on our own, we find a partner who can actually run the center, who can find the coaches, the workshop leaders. And of course, we work very, very closely with them to get it all together. But that's sort of how the model works.
And how many centers do you have at the moment?
So we have about 8 in Armenia, so where we started, and about 15 worldwide. But by the end of next year, we'll probably double our global footprint.
Amazing. David, I think the first time that I heard about Lala was through Felipe. And I think Felipe did one of your boot camps, and I think that's how you met as well. Since then, a lot has happened. What do you think makes Lala such a worldwide reference when it comes to new approaches to education?
Wow, thank you for the question. Before, I want to bring you all into like the love that I'm feeling up here. Like, Felipe, 3 years, and to see this place. Like, it's not small when Kabir says this is the first time he enters the space and he knows that this can just happen here. This is special. And you asked this first question, Fernando, about like what brings us together. I was looking and I think I saw it up on one of your walls, because the walls speak to you here, right? Have you all seen that the walls talk? And one of the things they say is, make a commitment to the problem, not the solution. So 8 years ago when I started talking to Felipe, he was chasing around, he said, I'm on a mission. It was just another meeting. Have you ever had just like another meeting on your schedule where it's just another meeting? I'm on a mission. What's the mission? I'm trying to find what programs are changing the lives of young people. And I'm here just in case you might have some insight to help me with the problem that I'm focused on. I won't forget that first meeting. And he didn't know what the answer was. He told me what he was leaving, and in that first meeting, it was like, because I know, he said, that these young people are not being served the way they should be being served. That they are underserved by the programs that are around them. That there's brilliance in this young person. They're not going to go to Harvard, and they're not going to go to Yale. And we've got to figure out how to bring it out of them. And so we work on that every single day. And we keep trying. And many of you do too. That's what brings us together. And when I get on the stage with these people, because of a certain kind of practice, there's a certain insight that's available, like a wisdom that becomes afforded that you can start to see. So when I hear something like what Kabir's saying about like, because we believe that young people should choose, or in the choice of young people, that's not gratuitous. It doesn't come for free. It comes from working in these spaces and realizing that if we put boundaries on their choices, the body doesn't respond with an open heart and a care and a certain kind of engagement. So now to Lala, your question about what you asked me. Lala believes that if we speak to young people at a particular time, starting in their teenage years, that we can open up their hearts in ways that schools don't. Schools are wonderful. They are safe havens for so many of our young people. Bless our schools for being there. But too many of them are focused on a certain kind of content. And when young people walk through their doors, they don't feel seen, they don't feel heard, they don't feel challenged in a way that gets them to engage in the world. And Lala says, come and meet some others who, for whatever reason, are trying to solve the challenges that they see around them. It can be big or small, but there's something about their constitution that wants to help others. And then when they see other people in action, it's like they float in the air. A certain kind of transcendent experience, a feeling of connectedness, like flow, but with other people. And it motivates them to take another action, to be brave, send an email, make a connection, build a network. And we think that it makes all the difference in the world if young people start doing this in their teenage years. Our systems are set up to value them after they've completed schooling, but all of that time is beautifully valuable developmental time. And we try to tap into it, and the strategies are built around that.
Such a great answer. Thank you.
How many kids and how many countries does Lala serve today?
We're about 20 countries across Latin America. In network right now in community, about 3,200.
So you talk in the way that you unpacked Tumo and then Lala, you talk about some of the maybe issues that the educational system may have. But I'd love to actually ask the question for the three of you: why does the world need new approaches to education? What are the biggest tensions when it comes to this space today?
You want to start, Kabir? Go ahead.
I can share a little bit of kind of what I see, especially sitting in India, and I think a lot of it applies everywhere, but I don't want to assume that, so I'll just speak about India, right? So in India, we had a lot of economic growth and development in the last probably 25, 30 years. A lot of that was because we were able to tap into some of the technological changes that happened at that time, right? We had a slice of our population that was able to connect into the global tech boom. So tech, I'm talking about sort of computers and then connectivity, mobile, internet. And almost all of the economic growth in India in that 25-year period has been because of those sectors rising. Sorry, there's a roundabout way of answering, but I'm getting to it. When I look at where we are now and looking ahead to the next 25 years, I fear that a lot of what worked in the past is not setting us up to take advantage of the changes that are happening now. I think increasingly, so a lot of what worked for us was a very strong technical and narrow focused education system. We have these fantastic colleges of engineering where we were able to train people to build good software or be sort of the back office for the world. Increasingly, yes, the technical side is important, but if you're not able to marry it with creativity, with openness, you're actually pretty stuck. And so from my vantage point, as I see this sort of wave of AI and new technology coming, and might be in a hype bubble, but I also think it's real. Like, I do think it's going to fundamentally change a lot of how the world works. I was actually recently looking at the 500 biggest LLM models in the world. 0 are based in India. And I'm kind of really keen to find ways that we can prepare young people for what this new world will look like. And I fear that a lot of what worked well in the last 50 years is actually precisely wrong for the next 50. So that to me is a little bit of that urgency. I don't think it's a uniquely Indian problem. I think a lot of this is probably true in most places. But for me, that was a big thrust of, hey, this model of giving students choice, empowering them to learn on their own and to make on their own, and to mix the worlds of creativity and technology, that feels like the right answer. So long-winded way to answer your question, but that to me is a little bit of why there's urgency to me in making this happen. Yeah.
I would just add that for me, education happens not just only inside a school or a classroom, and I think looking at Brazil, I don't have the perspective globally, but I have the experience with Geração Caldeira and the projects that I'm running, and what I feel is that there is a lack of that we don't stimulate young people to dream, to imagine. And that starts not in school, starts at home. And like I'm a parent, I have 2 kids, and it's challenging for me like to help them to dream, to be an artist, because a child is an artist. So I think in the perspective of what we're trying to do in Caldeira and what we learn is that it's really, really hard to change somebody in their own environment. So when we think to kids, we go to their house, to their home, to their parents. It's really hard that we can change like the education that they got from their family. The same thing inside a school, because the students are there like for a lot of years. The same thing, the same process. So when we go to schools and Caldeira, we go to schools for the kids to know that Caldeira exists, that Geração Caldeira exists, because none of the kids in Rio Grande do Sul or Brazil know that this is happening right now. When we go there, we find that it's too hard to stimulate and mobilize them just with words. If we go them, we give a workshop, we give a lecture, it's really hard because they're going to be looking, what this guy is talking about. I'm not interested. And even if I'm interested, that's too much work I need to put. When we bring the students, who is from Geração Caldeira? Raise the hand here. So we have a few students. When you guys came here for the first time, I'm sure you came here just like Kabir and David got here today, and you looked and say, wow, what is this place? Maybe it's strange from your reality, and you say, wow, this is not for me. This is too business, too corporate. And then, as soon as you come here, but something tells you that you want something from this space, from this community, that you don't even know what it is, but you feel, like David was talking before, you feel that there is something here. And this is the most powerful thing that we learned through these 3 years of Geração Caldeira, is that we have something here that if we bring kids, something, not all of the kids, but something can change a little bit. And this is magical. And that's why I look today on what we have in Caldeira and say, wow, this is cool. But we haven't started. We are just starting. We are still an innovation hub for companies. We are not an innovation organization for young people, for people that want to dream, that want to learn. So we are going to become an environment for young people. And when I see Tumu and the work that you're doing with art, music, connecting to technology, we saw Tumu, and then we understood that the same phrase, the same sentence that they use, a Center for Creative Technologies, was the same thing that we were thinking about. And I say, wow, there is a place in Armenia doing that. And then for me, that is the sparkling. We in Caldeira can be the place where kids from all over Rio Grande do Sul, all over Brazil, and all over the world, why not, are going to come, they're going to feel something, and they are going to go back differently. This, for me, is a gift that we can do as an institution like Caldeira, but we won't do it by ourselves because we don't know how to do it. David is doing that for 8 years, all over 20 countries in Latin America. Kabir is doing this in Tumu all around the world. If we connect, I'm sure there is something really powerful that can come out of that?
Yeah, look, the challenges, continuing off of what Kabir was saying about the advancing challenge of technology, and then how do we bring young people into engagement? I think the biggest challenge is going to be how do we call young people to action? How do we say, we need you? Because what we're saying is like, your job's not going to be here tomorrow. Right? You've heard that. But how do we whisper back, we need you? Because the way I look at it, we were designed to be needed, to be wanted. We need people to say, we love you, and we need you to help face the challenges of the future. And we don't know how to say that to young people really well anymore. We're saying things like, sorry, we thought you were going to be able to be a programmer, but AI is coming, and we're making excuses for their place in the world. We need to get better at saying, we need you to face these particular set of problems and challenges. And that's kind of what Felipe was doing when he calls us up here. It's what happened when we had our first call. We didn't leave with an answer, but we left with like our eyes on fire. People were designed to have their eyes light up with care and love and passion for something. And we don't know how to whisper those words to young people to let them know that they're here for something. And we've got to be able to talk about technological advances. We've got to be able to help them create an imaginal sense of the future. And they've got to be able to connect it to their past. And if they can do that, then what starts to happen is what happened to all of us, is that we leave the call that we didn't want to go to in the first place when we started that. You've had that feeling like, oh, what's his name? Felipe Amaral. At what time? Diego. It's my co-founder. But then you leave the end of the call with a little bit more energy, a little bit more passion, and that motivates you to send an email, to make a connection, to start something. We need to get better at inviting young people into our future. And anybody who wants to talk about this, please let me know, because I would love to we talk about like getting to know people and relationships, a certain kind of pickup lines. What are the lines you use to invite young people to action? How do you say it? I'd love to have that conversation.
Yeah, I love that thought. And just to kind of build on it a bit, and I think, Felipe, you've always talked about this as a dream, and that's also something that's stuck with me. So one anecdote or example I wanted to share, it's much more micro than your point, David, but I think getting young people involved and that being the answer. So we do a lot of work with making creative videos, music, all of that. 2 or 3 years ago, when a lot of the Gen AI tools were still newer, one challenge we used to have was this continuity issue with generated videos, right? So you couldn't create multiple scenes with the same looking people. And our workshop leader who was teaching, I think it was digital storytelling or one of our skills, he was working with a group of students to say, hey, here's this new technology, and you guys play with it. And he presented it as, but this constraint exists that you can only have 5 seconds at a time of the same characters, but make a 1 minute long video. The way that group of teenagers interpreted it was that they made this beautiful video about what it means to fall in love, and how there's not like a version of yourself that is the same throughout that whole journey of falling in love. And these are teenagers, so they're only talking about a few months, but a few months in the life of a teenager and this act of meeting someone, having a crush, falling in love, breaking up. And it's kind of different, the people are looking a little different throughout because at that point the technology wasn't there. But to me, it was like this really powerful example of you bring young people into this conversation, you give them the tools and the technology to run with it, and they will come up with something just totally different than what you could have thought of yourself. So a very micro example, but this kind of call to action and, hey, this is now, for you guys.
Look, I love this, and I don't know if this is going too far, but we were just having a conversation earlier, and I'm going to geek out a little bit about something you said earlier and ask you a question about it. So Kabir was saying, he's like, no, like the skills we teach, it's kind of like a Trojan horse for. And as soon as somebody says that, wait a second, the skills you teach are a Trojan horse? Tell me more. So can you help us see that? Because it's so interesting. And this is what I talk about, like the wisdom of somebody who's doing it every day. They get this perspective that you only get if you're seeing it and doing it and working with it like Kabir and Felipe are every single day.
Yeah, so what we've, Tumo's been around for about 13 years. And what we've kind of realized is that the main thing we want our learners to go away with is motivation. So the motivation that you can study and make and create and build things, and what space that might be in could be very different, but unlocking that motivation that you can kind of put in the effort and make it happen. So the skills are a way to get kids to kind of, start exploring something. Could be music or it could be coding. But over time, what we really want them to take away is not that I can now, program really well in Java. Sure, that's also great. But it's that, hey, I can actually understand a language through which I can communicate with computers and build things that I and others can use. And that's a thing that it's not just for coding or any other skill, but you can actually apply that to anything. And so when we say, or when I did this phrase of the skills are actually a Trojan horse, like the skills are a way that kind of you can introduce people to these skills, but what you want them to take away is much more than just that skill.
So let me, I think maybe change chapter and talk about, I think you touched upon Educational Center for Creative Technologies. That's how you are articulating the vision for education at Instituto Caldeira. Can you expand on that? And particularly, why creative technologies? What's the importance of the word creative in that definition?
So creative, when we started the vision, like David was helping me and Fernando was helping me as well. And we started thinking about that wasn't creative, it was like technology and human, because that's obviously on what we're living right now. And then we understood that creativity was easier for people to understand. It's the human part, not the tech part. And like learning from a lot of initiatives like around the world and thinking on what we can offer here, because we have something. So I won't say, let's create something that is completely different on what we have. Today we have an innovation hub for companies and for education. Imagine, young people or anyone that is here, if you could come here, you could go around and you could see, wow, a lot of companies, nice place, a lot of people, connections, and then you could go to another place that could be kind of like a science museum. We have a museum really famous here, which is called Museum of PUC, of the University of PUC. Imagine if it's kind of a museum of PUC connected with like creativity, technology, and the future of, not the future of the world, but the future of the work world and the professions and everything around that. That here you have something that it's happening right now, and maybe the other side of the street, there is something that we can imagine together. And to imagine together, it's not going to be inside a classroom, somebody giving a lesson or a panel like this. It's something that you're going to go in, you're going to interact, you're going to feel. And then, so for me, this is a kind of, how can we bring like a museum, a science, art, and museum. We just had this morning a panel with SESI Lab, which is a science, art, and museum in Brasilia. There was inspired and in Exploratorium, which is a museum really famous in San Francisco. They are here in Instituto Caldeira because we think they are interesting, and we brought them. So imagine if it's kind of museum connected to a TUMO, where you have a place and you can learn and you have technology and you have music and all of that, connected with a network of young people from all around Latin America or around the world, like David is doing in Lala, and I can see it. Maybe it's not so clear for you, but like I can see it. And I see that this that we're doing right now, it's the first version. And what is missing for me is a place to learn, a place to imagine, and a place to get emotion. That you go as you go to a film, and maybe you're gonna cry, you're gonna read a book, and you're gonna get emotion. You go to a museum, you go to a show, to a concert. So I think this is what we're trying to do. I know that it's not already packed, like the project is but we are getting on. And we're gonna get on with partners like these guys.
I'd love to know more, and if you were part of that decision of actually having creative technologies in the definition of Tumo as well, your version of the reasoning behind the word.
Yeah, I mean, this is my interpretation of why it matters a lot. I think actually the way Felipe described it is very similar to how we think about it ourselves. If I add my own kind of personal editorial piece to it, so for a long time, the definition of Homo sapiens used to be, can you use tools, right? Like humans were the species that were using tools. Then in the 70s or early 80s, Jane Goodall and these other scientists spent a lot of times with other apes, and they actually saw that chimpanzees use tools as well. And so tools being kind of technology, right? So that's a core part of how everything works. But then they had to rethink the definition, like what separates Homo sapiens, humans, from our predecessors. And it switched from technology or tools to creativity. So we are a species that just creates things and beauty and books and movies because we want to feel emotions or we want to communicate things in a different way. And at least for now, that's kind of the difference that makes humans humans, right? And of course, we have much more advanced technologies than other species, all that, but that creative technologies together, I think, is one of the kind of binding forces for all of us in all countries and all humans. So to me, like creative technologies together is just a beautiful and powerful concept. Yeah.
David, listening to Felipe, so you've met Felipe 8 years ago, so you know the guy for a bit. Listening to him just describing the dream, and now with a bit of the backdrop behind Tumo's approach with the use of the word creative, what's your interpretation of what Felipe just said?
Look, I love the question, thank you. And so I love the word museum, but it's so controversial, right? Like when I think about a museum, I think about something that's old, right? Like dinosaurs, something like old things. And the museum doesn't change a lot. But to do a museum for the future, where you were just asking me a question, I think that we've got to figure out how to call young people into action. Well, we all know tech is coming. We all know it's going to change our lives, but we don't really know how it is. Wouldn't it be nice, essential even, to have a place you can go to that helps you understand how technology is promising to change your life tomorrow? It can't stay still. It has to keep moving, right? Because we know every week, every month, every year, we're getting new developments as to how our lives are going to change. But what if you had a trusted place you could go to that's going to tell you, this is how your life is going to change. These are the regulations you need. This is how you can protect your kids. I think there's a space and a need for that in the market. And I'm excited to see it unfold here at Caldera.
So, Felipe, I've known you for a while too, a bit longer than David. And I think, if I'm correct, I think your last formal job was in 2009.
Yeah.
I think so, right? And then
My only formal job in my
your
life.
only formal job.
And right now in Caldera.
And now in Caldera, exactly, with CLT. And since then, a lot has changed in your life, in your trajectory, right? And I can see from the outside all the changes. But I think, for me at least, I'm genuinely curious to know from you, what has not changed? What have you carried on that you're now being able to actually put in practice with Instituto Caldeira, with this vision for the center? It's a tough question, actually, but
No, I think I asked my wife, I'm with her the last 15 years. And now I'm in a really enthusiasmatic time in my life. So if you let me, I'm going to stay 10 hours talking about my dream. And then I was having dinner with her last week, and I was really excited, really excited. And then I asked her, I was like this 15 years ago because I was different. And she told me, you were exactly the same. So there is something inside me that I'm looking for something. But 15 years ago, 20 years ago, I was a dreamer. Like I wanted to change the world. I was living in my parents' house. I didn't get my own money, so it's just a dreamer. And I feel that it takes time. So it took like me 20 years to now I have more confidence there is something here. And I feel that it's going to happen. 20 years. And even though I feel that I'm in the beginning of the process. So I think what haven't changed is that something inside me tells me that I need to continue and to move forward and go and go. And sometimes we go further, sometimes we go back. David, he knows a lot of initiatives that I created, Fernando as well. It didn't work. It didn't work. And maybe Caldeira, I don't know if it's going to work or if it's not going to work. So I think it's something inside me that it's, maybe this is profound, but it's a lot bigger than just the project or my work. It's about myself. So I'm in the process of transforming Felipe as a human being, and the work, the project is just something concrete, but everything that is happening is inside me. And I'm doing the same thing I was doing 20 years ago when I was 19 years old, and I didn't know what to do in my life, what I'm going to do in my career, like everyone here. And I got really, really depressed. And then I got really, really depressed, and I'm not going to go up again. And then I went up, and I said, wow, I can get up again. So I think this is what continues me to me. It's to be a better human being. It's not about the education. It's not about the center. It's about like Pedro, the CEO Caldeira, says, it's about being the best version that I can be of myself.
That's beautiful. So I would love. I think we are about 7 minutes away from our deadline. I'd love to open for questions. Does anyone have questions for the panelists here on stage? Lucas, I think you need a mic. Yeah.
So you are talking about having an idea, a format, and a structure. I could talk to you with you a little bit earlier, and to go to the world, to expand this. So how do you think? How do you have in mind? And you talk a lot about having the young people excited and knowing how to speak to them. What do you have in mind to really get through these people, to these young people, to talk their language and locally? Because we know that we are talking about emotions, we are talking about creativity, we are talking about all these things that move us. So, but all these things that move us come from within and from the local. It's beautiful if come from the local. If you can give an opportunity, globally speaking, with a global language is one opportunity. But if you speak locally, you can go further. You can make this learning and this changing stronger. So what do you have in mind to reach that?
Yeah, love that question. So for us, we started in Armenia, as I mentioned, and we are all over. When we first started going to new places, we tried to almost copy and paste our structure and do it ourselves. very quickly we realized that doesn't work, right? Each place has its own unique cultural context, the way I mean, there are some commonalities in how young people are everywhere in the world, which is also great, but there are also important differences. The way that you communicate with a teacher, what you call them, even things like that make a difference. So what we've realized is that instead of us going and trying to just, copy and paste one model, we have a lot of things that remain the same. So our content, the core of it, the pedagogical approach, mixing self-learning and workshops, those things stay the same. But in each of our centers internationally, we find a local partner to actually run the center, right? And so instead of Tumo coming in and hiring a team and Tumo providing all of the oversight, it's actually the local partner who's running the center with, of course, all of the know-how that we have from having done this with our software, our content, and all of that. And what we always try to do is spend a lot of time up front. Translation is one thing, but also making the content actually relevant to the local context. So, we opened our first center in Japan in June, and one of the things we've learned is that even if you have video, if you just dub it or subtitle it, it doesn't quite work. So we found a local company in Japan that remade almost all of our videos to have Japanese-speaking people talking instead of someone speaking in English and it's dubbed. And through that process, you also end up changing some of the things that matter. So another example from Mumbai, where we're just building a center now, one of the examples in our animation course is about animating someone who is going skiing. But in Mumbai, there's no snow. Most of our kids will never have seen snow. So that example doesn't make sense. So you have to change it to something for that local context and that local culture. And we can only do that if we have a local partner who is very deeply involved in helping us kind of run the process. So that's been our approach that we think works pretty well. Trying to preserve what we think is the kind of secret sauce or the magic of Tumo, of that mix of self-learning, choice, structure, and then working with our local partner to adapt what really matters in each different city.
Good afternoon, Felipe, Fernando, David, and Javier. I don't know if you are seeing me because of the light, but yes. Okay, it's a pleasure to be here. Actually, I'm a student of Geração Caldeira in the trial of management sales. And as like Felipe, I also have the dream for helping and teaching the youngs. In my entire life, I was a professor, and since 2023, I have a group of mental care of young and childs. And I have a question actually based on technology in the future, because the future we also talked about is the present. When you have the AI and when you have the VR and all these technologies, we also live with this right now. But the future also is the teenagers, is the next generation that's coming up. And when you have this opportunity to take care of teenagers, of the generation, they are into the future, into this technology, but maybe they're not running with it because they are scared, because they doesn't know that they can do it. How is your perspective of taking care of these teenagers and have the opportunity to change the next 20, 40 years of the future in your world? How you take care of it? How you take care of your dreams, making it really? Thanks a lot, not just for a dreamer, but for a student.
Thank you for bringing your story to the space, and the kinds of choices you described making, I think, make for a healthy heart and mind. And I think that's what we have to put in front when we think about how we prepare young people. Are they feeling connected, healthy? Are they well? Because if they're not, if they're chasing a certain kind of fear or not feeling well connected in the world, then their ability to respond to those conditions are muted. And so I think that is where we need to start asking ourselves, why? Because there's a kind of, this is the word autopoietic. In like a system knows how to care for itself, so it can grow just by itself. So like a healthy forest. Can you imagine a healthy forest? This concept of like regenerative food, agrofloristry, permaculture. What does it mean to create human beings that are like that can take care of themselves because they're well nested in a community of people? Do you know what that looks like? It looks like what you're doing. Hey, I came from this. I'm supporting young people right now. And so what you see is you see a set of commitments to people ahead of them on the path, like mentors, and then a commitment to those behind them on the path, like mentees and young people. And when you live in a forest like that, you're not just an individual who's all alone against all of these, but you walk together with a group. There's a little story, and you remember there was a big push to like plant lots of trees? Everybody wanted to plant 1 million trees. If we could just plant 1 million trees, we get all the carbon to it. What we learned is that when you plant a tree without a forest, it just doesn't do what it does within a forest. It's just a pole. And we want to stop preparing leaders or young people that are just like poles in the ground. They need to have this distributed forest. It creates resiliency, it creates connectedness, and then when the fire comes, we're robust, resilient, and fit, and we can manage it.
Beautiful. Thank you for the question. Our time is over, so thank you for coming. Thank you, David, Kabir, Felipe. It's been a pleasure, and see you soon.